The huge alien ship moved slowly through space toward Earth's solar system. It was bigger than any city on Earth, with bright lights covering its smooth surface. Inside the ship, hundreds of different alien creatures worked together. They had done this same job many times before with other worlds. Ambassador Velthar stood in the main control room. His body looked like living crystal that changed colors when he moved. Around him, other aliens from different worlds checked their equipment. There was Morgan, who looked like a giant flower with many arms. Next to him stood Quillax, whose skin was covered in soft fur that glowed in the dark. "Are the translation devices ready?" Velthar asked in his musical voice. "Yes, Ambassador," replied Morgan. "We can speak with these humans in their own language. The computers have studied their radio signals for many years." Velthar looked at the blue and green planet getting closer. "Good. This will be contact number 847. Every time before the new species has joined our council, these humans should be no different. On Earth, Fleet Admiral Dai-Ho Kim sat in his chair at the Deep Space Communications Center. The building was new, built just for talking to ships far away in space. Many screens showed information from satellites watching the sky. Suddenly, the screens started flashing red. "Sir," called out Lieutenant Junho Park, "we have a very large object coming toward Earth. It's bigger than anything we've ever seen." Dai-Ho stood up and walked to the main screen. His face was calm, but his hands were tight. "How far away?" "Just outside our moon's path, sir. It's slowing down." Captain Nari Choi's voice came through the radio from her ship in space. "Admiral, this is the Indomitable. We can see the alien vessel clearly. It's not showing any weapons, but it's huge. What are your orders?" Dai-Ho picked up his radio. "Stay ready, Captain, but do not attack unless they attack first." The alien ship stopped moving. Then, a voice came through all of Earth's communication systems at once. It spoke in perfect English, but with a strange musical sound. "Greetings, people of the third planet from your sun. We are the Galactic Council. We come in peace to welcome you into our family of worlds. We have traveled far to meet you." Dr. Jai-Ho Park rushed into the control room. He was Earth's best scientist for studying life from other worlds. His eyes were wide with excitement. "Admiral, they're really talking to us. This is the most important day in human history." "Maybe," Dai-Ho said quietly. "But we need to be careful," the alien voice continued. "We know you have many questions. We have watched your world for some time. You have grown much in your technology. You can now travel to other worlds. This means you are ready to join us. We offer you great gifts. We can share our knowledge of science and medicine. We can teach you to travel between stars faster than light. We can show you thousands of worlds with life. All we ask is that you become part of our council and follow our ways of peace." President Min Ha-yoon arrived at the communication center. She was a small woman, but she had led Earth through many difficult times. "What do they want?" she asked Dai-Ho. "They want us to join their galactic government," he answered. "They're offering us advanced technology." Dai-Ho was reading information on his computer. "Admiral, this is amazing. They say they represent almost 1,000 different species. They've been traveling space for thousands of years. They can cure diseases we can't even treat. They can give us power sources that never run out." "And what do they want in return?" asked President Yoon. The alien voice answered as if it heard her question. "We ask only that you accept our guidance. You will send representatives to our council. You will follow our laws for peace between worlds. You will share your world's resources with other council members. This is how we keep peace in the galaxy." Nari's voice came through the radio again. "Admiral, more alien ships are arriving. I count 12 different types. They're all different sizes and shapes." Engineer Dong-Yun Nam had been listening quietly. He was the leader of Earth's space program. "Admiral, may I ask them a question?" Dai-Ho nodded. Dong-Yun spoke into the communication system. "Thank you for coming to Earth. Can you tell us more about these laws we would have to follow?" Velthar answered from his ship. "Of course, human friend. Council law is simple. No member world may attack another member world. All disagreements, Must be solved by council vote. All member worlds must share their new discoveries with other members. All member worlds must accept council decisions about trade and travel between worlds. What if we don't agree with a council decision? Asked Dongyun. That rarely happens, Velthar said, sounding confused. The council is wise. We have kept peace for 3,000 years. No species has ever been unhappy with our guidance. President Yoon, Admiral Daeho, Dr. Jiho, and Engineer Dongyun looked at each other. They had been planning for this day for years, but now it was real. We need time to think about your offer, President Yoon said into the communication system. Of course, Velthar replied. Take all the time you need, we will wait here. This is always a big decision for a new species. For 3 days, Earth's leaders met in secret. They read everything they could find about galactic governments from their science books. They talked to military leaders, scientists, and people from every country on Earth. On the 3rd day, Admiral Daeho sat alone in his office. On his desk was a report from Intelligence Director Yunbi Park. It said that these aliens had never met a species like humans before. Most species they found were either much less advanced or much more peaceful. Captain Nari called him. Sir, the aliens are asking for our answer. Daeho walked back to the communication center. President Yoon was there, along with all the important leaders of Earth. Dr. Jiho looked excited but also worried. Are we ready? Asked President Yoon. Daeho nodded. He spoke into the communication system. Ambassador Velthar, thank you for your kind offer. The people of Earth have made their decision. Wonderful, came the musical voice from space. We are ready to welcome you into the Galactic family. We respectfully decline your invitation, President Yoon said clearly. We thank you for coming to Earth, but we choose to make our own path among the stars. The silence from the alien ship lasted for long minutes. Finally, Velthar's voice returned, but it sounded different, confused. I'm sorry, but I don't understand. Did your translation device make an error? Did you say you refuse to join the council? That is correct, President Yoon said. We prefer to remain independent. But this has never happened before, Velthar said. No species has ever refused council membership. Are you sure you understand what you're giving up? We offer you wonders beyond your imagination. We understand, Admiral Daeho said, and we are grateful. But humans must find their own way. The communication ended. In the alien ship, hundreds of creatures stared at their screens in shock. In 3,000 years of galactic history, no one had ever said no to the Galactic Council. Ambassador Velthar stood frozen in his command center. Around him, representatives from 12 different alien species stared at their communication screens. The silence stretched for long minutes. Did that really just happen? Asked Morgan, his flower-like petals drooping with confusion. Did they actually say no? Quillax's glowing fur flickered rapidly, a sign of extreme distress among his people. In all my years serving the council, I have never heard of such a thing. Every species wants to join us. We offer them everything they could ever need. Velthar activated his emergency communication system. Within hours, he was speaking directly to the Galactic Council's High Command, located in the great space city of New Harmony. The council chamber was a massive sphere where thousands of different species gathered to make decisions for the galaxy. Supreme Coordinator Hexara materialized as a hologram in Velthar's ship. Her species looked like floating clouds of light, and she had lived for over 2,000 years. Ambassador, your report is disturbing. Please repeat exactly what these humans said. They said, "We respectfully decline your invitation," Velthar repeated. They choose to remain independent. Supreme Coordinator, I don't understand. We offered them star travel, advanced medicine, endless energy. Why would any species refuse such gifts? Hexara's light flickered thoughtfully. This has never happened. In recorded galactic history, we must study these humans more carefully. Send me all the data you have collected about their species. On Earth, Commander Sumin Lee worked late in her office at the Intelligence Division. She was one of Earth's best code breakers, and her job was to listen to alien communications. Her computers had been recording every signal from the alien ship since they arrived. Interesting, she said to herself as she read the translated messages. She picked up her phone and called Admiral Deho. "Sir, you need to hear this. The aliens are completely confused by our refusal. They're calling emergency meetings with their government. They keep saying this has never happened before." "What else are they saying?" Deho asked. "They're starting to study our history. They want to understand why we said no. Some of them sound worried, like they think something is wrong with us." Meanwhile, teams of alien scientists worked around the clock to understand human behavior. They studied Earth's television signals, radio broadcasts, and internet communications. What they found shocked them. Dr. Yiloth, an expert in species psychology, reported to the Council, "These humans are unlike any species we have encountered. They seem to enjoy conflict. Their entertainment shows wars, competitions, and struggles. They celebrate individuals who fight against authority. Most disturbing," added cultural analyst Vex Han, "they have a concept called freedom, that they value more than safety or comfort. Many of their historical heroes died rather than accept someone else's rule." The logic weavers, a species of computer-like beings, ran countless calculations. Their report was simple. The probability of a species refusing council membership is 0.001%. The probability of humans acting logically is even lower. Back on Earth, engineer Donghyun Nam was busy with his own projects. While the aliens waited for an answer, he had not been sitting still. In secret factories around the world, humans worked to build their own space technology. "We don't need their advanced science," he told his team. "Humans have always been good at solving problems. We'll find our own way to travel between stars." The Galactic Council decided to try again. They sent their best cultural ambassadors to Earth, species that specialized in helping new worlds understand the benefits of joining the Council. The Harmony Singers arrived first. They looked like tall, thin humans, but with skin that changed, colors with their emotions. Their special ability was to make other species feel peaceful and happy just by being near them. They had never failed to convince a species to join the Council. President Yoon met with them in Geneva, in a great hall, built for important meetings between countries. The Harmony Singers began their work, filling the air with beautiful music that was supposed to make humans want to agree with everything they said. But something strange happened. The humans in the room felt the music was nice, but it didn't change their minds. Dr. Hyejin Seo, Earth's top medical researcher, studied the aliens with great interest. "Fascinating," she whispered to President Yoon. "They're trying to influence our emotions, but human brains seem to resist it naturally." The lead harmony singer, Lulandria, looked confused when her music didn't work. She tried harder, adding more layers to her song, but the humans just listened politely. "People of Earth," Lulandria said, "we offer you medical knowledge that could make your lives much longer. Your people could live for hundreds of years instead of just decades." Dr. Hyejin stood up. "Thank you for the kind offer. But humans prefer to solve our medical problems ourselves. We've learned that the journey to find answers is just as important as the answers themselves." "But why would you choose to suffer when we can end your suffering?" asked Lulandria. "Because," said President Yoon, "struggle makes us stronger. Easy answers make us weak." Next came the gentle shepherds, a species that had helped over 200 worlds join the Council. They looked like large, soft animals, with many eyes and spoke in voices that sounded like a mother talking to her child. "Dear humans," said their leader, "you are still young as a species. Let us guide you as we have guided so many others. You don't have to carry the heavy responsibility of making decisions for your whole world." "But we want that responsibility," replied Admiral Deho. "Making our own choices is what makes us human." The aliens tried showing humans their greatest achievements. They displayed holographic images of beautiful cities on distant worlds where every species lived together in perfect peace. They showed hospitals where no one ever got sick, and schools where all knowledge was shared freely. Look at what we have built together, said Cultural Ambassador Plenthos. No war, no hunger, no disease. Every species contributes their special abilities to help all others. The humans looked at the images with interest, but not with the desire the aliens expected. It's very impressive, said Dr. Jiho, but it all looks the same. Where is the diversity? Where is the competition that drives new ideas? Competition causes conflict, Plenthos replied. We have eliminated such primitive behaviors, and in doing so, said Captain Nari, joining the meeting by video from her ship, you may have eliminated the things that make life worth living. The aliens shared examples of their art, music, and literature. Everything was harmonious, peaceful, and designed to make people feel calm and happy. The humans found it beautiful but boring. In return, humans shared their own culture. They played rock music that made the aliens' ears hurt. They showed movies about heroes fighting against impossible odds. They read poetry about love and loss, and the struggle to find meaning in life. The aliens were horrified. One of the harmony singers actually fainted when she heard a human war song. The gentle shepherds huddled together in fear when they watched a movie about a rebellion against an evil government. How can you celebrate such violence? Asked Lulandria. How can you find beauty in conflict and struggle? Because, said Dr. Jiho, that's what makes us grow. That's what makes us become more than we were yesterday. The cultural exchange continued for weeks. The aliens brought their greatest philosophers, their wisest teachers, and their most persuasive speakers, but every argument they made only convinced the humans more that they had made the right choice. Commander Sumin Lee continued to monitor alien communications. She reported to Admiral Deho, Sir, they're getting desperate. Some of them are starting to think we're dangerous. They can't understand why any species would choose independence over safety. What are they planning to do? Asked Deho. They're talking about something called protective isolation. It sounds like they might try to keep us trapped in our solar system. As the weeks passed, more alien ships arrived. Not to threaten Earth, but to study this impossible species that had done something no one had ever done before. Scientists, philosophers, and government officials came from across the galaxy to see the humans who had said no to paradise. But the more they studied humans, the more worried they became. This species that chose freedom over safety, struggle over comfort, and independence over guidance was unlike anything in their experience. And in the depths of space, unknown to both humans and the Galactic Council, something else had been watching. Something that had been waiting for exactly this kind of disruption to begin its own plans for the galaxy. 6 months had passed since the aliens first arrived at Earth. The great ships of the Galactic Council still floated near Earth's moon, but now they had a different purpose. They were no longer there to welcome humans. They were there to watch. Then Supreme Coordinator Hexara's image appeared in the council chambers of New Harmony. Her voice carried across the galaxy to thousands of member worlds. Fellow council members, she announced, we face an unprecedented situation. The humans of Sol 3 continue to refuse our guidance. They have rejected every offer of membership, every attempt at cultural exchange, and every gift of advanced technology. Murmurs of concern echoed through the great chamber. Representative Colmuth of the Peaceful Builders spoke first. Supreme Coordinator, this is most disturbing. What if other species learn of this rejection? What if they begin to question council authority? Exactly our concern, Hexara replied. After careful consideration, the High Command has decided to implement protective isolation protocols around the Sol system. No ships may enter or leave human space without council permission. The decision was not made with anger, but with the same calm certainty the council had used for 3,000 years. They truly believed they were protecting both humanity and the galaxy from a dangerous mistake. Energy barriers appeared around Earth's solar system like invisible walls. Alien patrol ships took positions at every possible route away from the sun. The message was clear. Humans could stay in their small corner of space, but they could not spread their dangerous ideas to other worlds. The Council expected humans to change their minds quickly when they realized what they had lost. Without access to galactic trade, Without advanced alien technology, without the protection of council law, surely they would come begging to join within a few years. They were wrong. Admiral Tae-Hoon Jung stood before a crowd of reporters in the main briefing room of Earth Command. Behind him, a massive screen showed images of new spacecraft under construction in orbital shipyards around Earth and Mars. "Ladies and gentlemen," he announced, "today marks the launch of humanity's first independent interstellar exploration fleet. These ships were built entirely with human technology, by human hands, using human ingenuity. The ships were different from anything the aliens had ever seen. Where council vessels were smooth and elegant, human ships looked tough and practical. They were covered in armor plating and backup systems. Every part could be repaired or replaced during long journeys between stars." Captain Yuna Oh stood on the bridge of the ESV Pioneer, the first human ship designed to travel faster than light. Her engineering team had spent months studying the basic principles of space travel, then built their own version from scratch. "All systems ready, Captain," reported Chief Engineer Kyung-Soo Ryu. "Our jump drive is nothing like theirs, but our tests show it should work." "It will work," Yuna said confidently. "Humans have always found a way." The Pioneer's first mission was not to explore empty space, but to make contact with species the Galactic Council had ignored or forgotten. Intelligence reports from Commander Suman Lee had identified dozens of independent worlds on the edge of the galaxy, species that were too small, too poor, or too troublesome for the Council to bother with. When the Pioneer jumped to faster-than-light speed, it didn't disappear in a flash of light like Council ships. Instead, it seemed to fold space around itself, creating ripples that the alien sensors couldn't quite understand. "How are they doing that?" asked Velthar, still monitoring human space from his ship. "Our scientists say their method should be impossible." "Humans," replied Morgan with something like admiration, "seem to specialize in doing impossible things. The Pioneer's first stop was a world called Caven, home to a species of traders who had been fighting council regulations for decades. The Cavens looked like large insects with golden shells, and they were known throughout the galaxy for their skill at building and fixing things. When Captain Yuna's ship appeared in their space, the Cavens were ready to fight. They had assumed it was another council patrol coming to arrest their smugglers. "Unknown vessel," came the message from Caven Defense Control. "You are in violation of Council Law 247. Identify yourself immediately." "This is Captain Yuna Oh of the Earth ship Pioneer," she replied. "We come from the human species of Sol system. We're here to talk about trade and friendship." The silence that followed lasted several minutes. Finally, a new voice came through. The communication system. It belonged to Trade Master Veclon, the leader of Caven's independent government. "Did you say human? The species that rejected the council?" "That's correct," Yuna answered. "We heard that Caven values independence as much as we do." Within hours, Captain Yuna was sitting in Veclon's office, sharing stories about human history and learning about Caven's struggle to maintain their freedom. The Cavens were amazed to meet another species that chose independence over safety for generations, Veclon explained. "The Council has told us we are too primitive, too chaotic to govern ourselves. They say we need their guidance to be civilized." "Sounds familiar," Yuna replied. "They told us the same thing." The Cavens agreed to a trade agreement with Earth immediately. In exchange for human-manufactured goods and raw materials, they offered their services as repair specialists and their knowledge of the galaxy's hidden trade routes. Word of the Human-Caven alliance spread quickly through the galaxy's underground networks. Soon, other independent species began sending secret messages to Earth, asking to meet with these strange humans who had defied the mighty Galactic Council. Ambassador Kiwan Bey, Earth's new diplomat for independent worlds, found himself busier than he had ever imagined. Within 6 months of first contact, he had established the Human Commonwealth, a loose alliance of species that preferred freedom to forced peace. The Commonwealth was nothing like the Galactic Council. There were no laws about how member species had to behave, no requirements to share technology, no committees to make decisions for everyone. Each species remained completely independent, but they agreed to help each other when needed. The Council watched these developments with growing alarm. Supreme Coordinator Hexara called another emergency session. The humans are corrupting other species, she announced to the assembled representatives. They are spreading their dangerous ideas of independence and self-determination. If this continues, our entire system of galactic peace could collapse. What do you suggest we do? Asked Representative Colmeth. We must increase the isolation barriers, Hexara replied. No ships of any kind may enter or leave Commonwealth space. We will cut them off completely from galactic civilization. But the Council's blockade had an unexpected effect. Instead of weakening the Commonwealth, it made it stronger. Cut off from galactic trade, the independent species began trading more with each other. Without access to Council technology, they began developing their own innovations. General Sujin Kim, Earth's military commander, found herself training alien soldiers in human combat techniques. The Commonwealth species had been peaceful for so long that they had forgotten how to defend themselves, but humans remembered. The key to human military strategy, she explained to a group of Kavan warriors, is that every soldier can think for themselves. We don't wait for orders from headquarters. We adapt to changing situations immediately. Colonel Wu Jin-han demonstrated human defensive tactics to a group of Talaxian refugees whose world had been taken over by Council bureaucrats. The Talaxians were amazed by human ideas about guerrilla warfare, mobile defenses, and the importance of fighting for principles rather than just following orders. Your people fight like each soldier is a general, observed Talaxian War Chief Meskala. How do you coordinate such chaos? We share the same goal, Wu Jin replied. When everyone understands the mission, you don't need someone giving orders for every small detail. The Commonwealth's military doctrine spread as quickly as its trade networks. Species that had been defenseless under Council protection suddenly found themselves able to resist Council enforcement squads and patrol fleets. Director Yunbi Park's Intelligence Division reported something remarkable. Several Council member species were secretly asking for information about the Commonwealth. Some were even requesting observer status, a way to learn about human-style independence without officially leaving the Council. Admiral, she reported to Deho, we're getting secret communications from over 30 Council worlds. They want to know how we maintain order without a central authority. What are we telling them? Deho asked. The truth, Yunbi replied. That freedom is messy and difficult, but it's worth it. The galaxy was changing. For 3,000 years, the Galactic Council had maintained peace through control. Every species followed the same laws, used the same technologies, and solved problems the same way. It was efficient, peaceful, and completely predictable. But humans had introduced something new. The idea that different species might have different solutions to the same problems. The Commonwealth worlds began experimenting with new forms of government, new technologies, and new ways of relating to each other. Some experiments failed. Some Commonwealth worlds had conflicts with each other. Some innovations didn't work. But the failures taught lessons and the successes spread to other worlds. The first sign of trouble came from the galaxy's outer rim, where ancient Council listening posts had watched empty space for 1,000 years. Sensor technician Yilmoth stared at readings that made no sense on any of her screens. Supervisor, she called nervously. I'm detecting massive energy signatures moving toward our galaxy. The patterns are wrong somehow. Supervisor Hexdan, a veteran of Council Deep Space Monitoring, studied the data. His 6 eyes went wide with an emotion his species rarely felt. Fear. Send an immediate priority message to New Harmony, he ordered. Use emergency codes. The Void Hunters have returned. Supreme Coordinator Hexara received the message while meeting with Council representatives about the human problem. When she read it, her light form flickered with panic. The session is ended, she announced suddenly. All representatives return to your homeworlds immediately. Begin emergency defense preparations. What's happening? Demanded Representative Colmeth. Something we hoped we would never face again, Hexara replied. The Void Hunters are coming for EO. 3,000 years the Galactic Council had hidden a terrible secret. Long before they had built their peaceful civilization, Before they had learned to bring species together in harmony, the galaxy had been invaded by creatures from the empty space between galaxies. The Void Hunters were not like any life the galaxy had ever seen. They fed on energy itself, the life force of planets, stars, and entire civilizations. They came in great swarms of living ships, each one capable of draining the power from entire worlds. The first Void Hunter invasion had destroyed half the species in the galaxy. It had taken the combined strength of every surviving world to finally drive them back into the dark space between galaxies. The victory had cost so much that the survivors decided to never fight again. That's why the Galactic Council had been created, to prevent the wars that had weakened them before the Void Hunters came. But now, as Council defense fleets prepared their ancient battle plans, they discovered a terrible truth. 3,000 years of peace had made them weak. Director Yunbi Park was working late in her intelligence office when her computers detected something unusual in alien communications. The Galactic Council was sending coded messages across the galaxy, calling all their fleets to emergency positions. "This is different," she said to her assistant, Lieutenant Minseok Jang. "This isn't about the Commonwealth. They're scared of something else." Within hours, human listening posts throughout the solar system picked up fragments of Council communications. The aliens were talking about the ancient enemy and preparations for the final defense. Admiral Daeho called an emergency meeting of Earth's military commanders. The room was filled with the leaders who had built humanity's independent defense force. "Intelligence suggests the Council is facing a threat from outside the galaxy," Daeho announced. "Something they call the Void Hunters." General Sujin Kim leaned forward. "Sir, our allies in the Commonwealth are reporting strange energy readings from deep space. The Cavans say it reminds them of old stories their grandparents told about the Star Eaters." Captain Nari Choi, now commander of Earth's largest battle fleet, studied the data on her tablet. "Admiral, if this threat is real, it affects us too. We share the same galaxy." "My thoughts exactly," Daeho replied, "but we haven't been invited to help." That invitation came sooner than anyone expected. The first Void Hunter scouts reached the galaxy's edge just 2 weeks later. They were smaller than the main fleet, but each one was still larger than a Council city ship. As they moved through space, stars began to dim behind them. Council Fleet Commander Zeltarian led the first defensive line with 200 of the Council's finest warships. They met the Void Hunter scouts at the edge of the Andromeda trade route, confident that their superior technology would easily destroy the primitive invaders. The battle lasted less than an hour. The Void Hunters absorbed the energy from every weapon fired at them, growing stronger with each attack. Their own weapons drained power directly from the Council ships, leaving them dead in space. Only 12 Council vessels escaped to report the disaster. "How is this possible?" Hexara demanded of her military commanders. "Our battle plans worked against them before." "Supreme Coordinator," replied military advisor Torquan. "That was 3,000 years ago. The Void Hunters have learned from their defeat. They've adapted to our weapons and tactics." "Then we adapt too," Hexara declared. But adaptation was not something the Council did well. For 3,000 years they had used the same military tactics, the same weapons, the same strategies. When they tried to develop new approaches, their committee-based decision-making was too slow. By the time they agreed on a new plan, 3 more star systems had gone dark. The Void Hunter main fleet arrived 1 month later. It was larger than anything in recorded history. Millions of living ships that moved like a dark tide across the galaxy. Wherever they passed, stars died and worlds became empty, frozen rocks. Council fleets retreated again and again. Their weapons were useless, their tactics predictable. The few victories they won cost more ships than they could afford to lose. Captain Yuna O was exploring a Commonwealth trade route when her ship's sensors detected something massive approaching. The ESV Pioneer was alone, far from any backup, when dozens of Void Hunter scouts surrounded her. "All hands to battle stations," she ordered calmly. "Kyungsoo, give me everything the engines have got." "Captain," her chief engineer replied, "our weapons won't work against these things. Council ships can't even scratch them." "Then we don't fight them the way Council ships do." Yuna said. Humans have always been good at finding new solutions to old problems. Instead of trying to destroy the Void Hunters with energy weapons, Yuna ordered her crew to ram the Pioneer directly into the largest enemy ship. At the last second, she activated the ship's self-destruct system. The explosion didn't destroy the Void Hunter, but it did something unexpected. The massive discharge of energy overloaded the creature's ability to absorb power, stunning it for several minutes. Other Void Hunters rushed to help their injured fellow, giving the Pioneer time to escape. "Get me a message to Admiral Deho immediately," Yuna ordered. "I think I know how to hurt these things." The message reached Earth just as Ambassador Velthar's ship arrived in human space. The crystal being looked older and more tired than he had during first contact. "Admiral Deho," he said through the communication system, "I come to ask for something I never thought I would need to ask for. The Galactic Council requests military assistance from the human Commonwealth." The irony was not lost on anyone. The species that had been called too dangerous and violent for galactic society was being asked to save that same society from destruction. "Ambassador," Deho replied, "we will help defend our galaxy, but we fight as equals, not as your servants." "I understand," Velthar said quietly. "The Council has learned much about the value of independence in recent months. Admiral Jungsu Lim took command of the combined human Commonwealth fleet. Unlike Council forces, the Human Alliance had spent months preparing for asymmetric warfare, fighting enemies that were bigger, stronger, and better equipped. We can't match their firepower," he explained to his commanders, "but we can be smarter, faster, and more unpredictable." The human military doctrine that had seemed so chaotic to the aliens now became humanity's greatest weapon. While Council fleets fought in careful formations with predetermined tactics, human ships moved independently, adapting to each battle. As it developed, Captain Minsu Cha led the first human assault on a Void Hunter formation. Instead of trying to destroy the creatures directly, his ships targeted their ability to feed. Human engineers had developed disruption fields that interfered with the Void Hunter's energy absorption. "All ships random attack pattern 7, Minsu ordered. Don't let them predict where we're going next." The battle was unlike anything seen in galactic warfare. Human ships darted between the massive Void Hunters like angry insects, striking quickly and then disappearing before the creatures could respond. They didn't try to destroy the invaders. Instead, they confused them, divided them, and turned them against each other. For the first time since the invasion began, a Void Hunter fleet retreated. News of the human victory spread across the galaxy faster than light. Species that had given up hope began to believe they might survive. Council worlds that had condemned human militarism now begged to learn human tactics. But the victory came with a terrible cost. The Void Hunters were learning too, adapting to human strategies, just as they had adapted to Council weapons. Each battle was harder than the last, and the main invasion force was still coming. Commander Hyuna John, studying reports from the battle, made a disturbing discovery. "Admiral," she reported to Jungsu Lim, "the Void Hunters aren't just adapting to our tactics. They're getting smarter. They're learning to think like us." The final battle was approaching, and no one knew if even human ingenuity would be enough to save the galaxy. The Battle of Seven Suns would be remembered as the moment everything changed in the galaxy. 7 star systems formed a line across space, the last barrier between the Void Hunter main fleet and the populated worlds of the galactic core. Admiral Jungsu Lim stood on the bridge of his flagship, the ESV Indomitable, surrounded by holographic displays showing the largest space battle in recorded history. More than 10,000 ships from hundreds of different worlds had gathered for this final stand. "Status report," he ordered. "Commonwealth forces are in position," reported Captain Minsu Cha. "Council fleets are, well, they're trying to get into formation, but they keep asking for more specific orders." Commander Hyuna John looked up from her tactical display. "Sir, the Void Hunter main fleet is massive. Millions of bioships, each one larger than our biggest vessels. Our disruption tactics won't work against numbers like that." Jungsu nodded grimly. Traditional space combat was about controlling territory and destroying enemy ships, but the Void Hunters didn't need territory, they needed energy, and every weapon fired at them only made them stronger. Then we don't fight a traditional battle, he said. We fight a human battle. The plan that emerged from human military thinking was so unusual that many council commanders refused to believe it could work. Instead of trying to destroy the Void Hunters, the Alliance fleet would try to confuse them, divide them, and ultimately turn their greatest strength into weakness. Captain Youngmin Su led the first phase of the attack. His job was not to fight the Void Hunters, but to study them during combat. Human ships equipped with advanced sensors darted through the enemy formation, recording everything about how the creatures moved, communicated, and made decisions. They're not just animals, Youngman reported. There's intelligence here, but it's different from anything we understand. They seem to share thoughts across the entire fleet. Can we disrupt their communication? Asked Jung-soo. Maybe, replied Dr. Hyejin Seo, speaking from her mobile laboratory ship. But we'd need to get much closer to their command ships. The second phase began with something no military commander in galactic history had ever attempted: psychological warfare against alien minds. Commander Huna Jian had studied the Void Hunter battle patterns and discovered something remarkable. Despite their alien nature, the creatures showed signs of emotion, particularly fear and anger. They remember their last defeat 3,000 years ago, she explained to the fleet commanders. They're afraid it might happen again. We can use that fear. Human ships began broadcasting recordings of the ancient battle where the Void Hunters had been driven away. They showed images of defeated bioships fleeing into dark space. They transmitted the victory songs of the species that had survived the first invasion. The effect was immediate. The Void Hunter formation wavered, their perfect coordination breaking down as individual creatures hesitated or changed course without warning. It's working, reported Captain Nari Choi from her position with the Council forces. The enemy fleet is showing signs of confusion. But the Void Hunters learned quickly. Their command creatures began filtering out human transmissions, and their formation tightened. The psychological attack had bought time, but not victory. Admiral Jung-soo gave the order for Phase 3, the most dangerous part of the plan. While human ships kept the main Void Hunter fleet distracted, a small team of volunteers would attempt to reach the creature's central command organism. Captain Youngmin Su volunteered to lead the mission, even though everyone knew it was likely suicide. His ship, the ESV Destiny, was modified with every piece of stealth technology humans had developed. Remember, Jung-soo told him, you're not trying to destroy their command ship. You're trying to give it the one thing Void Hunters have never experienced before: indigestion. Youngmin replied with a grim smile. The plan was based on a discovery made by Dr. Hyejin Seo. The Void Hunters absorbed energy perfectly, but they had never encountered anything like human nuclear reactors. When humans fought, they didn't just use energy. They created it continuously in ways that alien technology couldn't predict or control. Youngmin's ship carried 12 overloaded fusion reactors, set to explode in a cascade reaction that would release more energy than the Void Hunter command organism could safely absorb. It wouldn't kill the creature, but it might make it very, very sick. The approach to the command ship was a nightmare of dodging bioweapons and energy drains. Youngmin's small crew worked frantically to keep their ship functioning as Void Hunter. Scouts attacked from all sides. Reactor containment at 15%, reported Engineer Da-Hyun Lee. We won't make it to the target. Yes, we will, Youngmin replied calmly. We always find a way. The ESV Destiny reached the command ship with seconds to spare. As Void Hunter defenders swarmed toward them, Youngmin activated the cascade reaction and ejected all 12 reactors directly into the creature's feeding organs. The explosion was visible from 3 star systems away. The massive command organism convulsed, its bioelectric systems overloaded by energy it couldn't process. The disruption spread through the entire Void Hunter fleet like a virus, as creatures that shared thoughts with their commander also shared its pain and confusion. For the first time in millions of years, the Void Hunters felt something they had never experienced. Defeat was possible, but victory came at a terrible cost. The ESV Destiny and her crew were destroyed in the explosion. Youngmin Su and his brave volunteers gave their lives to save not just humanity, but every living thing in the galaxy. The confused and leaderless Void Hunter fleet began to retreat, but they didn't flee immediately. Some bioships continued fighting, others tried to feed on nearby stars, and many simply drifted in space, unable to decide what to do without their command structure. Admiral Jungsu ordered the final phase of the battle. Commonwealth and Council fleets worked together to drive the remaining Void Hunters toward the galaxy's edge. It took months of careful herding, but eventually the ancient enemy was pushed back into the dark space between galaxies. The cost was enormous. Hundreds of ships were lost. Dozens of species had their homeworlds drained of energy, and entire star systems would take centuries to recover. But the galaxy survived. In the aftermath of the war, President Seon-ho Kim addressed the new Galactic Assembly. The old council chamber had been destroyed when the Void Hunters attacked New Harmony, so the survivors met on Earth, in a simple building that had once been used for human diplomatic meetings. Fellow citizens of the galaxy, President Kim began, we have learned something important from this war. Peace is not the absence of conflict, it's the strength to choose how we face our challenges. The new galactic government was nothing like the old council. Instead of one central authority making decisions for everyone, the assembly was organized into voluntary alliances. Species could choose which groups to join, which laws to follow, and which responsibilities to accept. Ambassador Ji-won Park became the first human representative to the assembly, but her job was very different from what council ambassadors had done before. Instead of enforcing uniform laws, she helped different species find ways to work together while keeping their independence. The galaxy is big enough for many different ways of living, she explained to representatives from hundreds of worlds. We don't all have to be the same to be friends. The Galactic Council had maintained peace for 3,000 years by eliminating differences between species. The new assembly maintained peace by celebrating those differences and finding strength in diversity. Some species chose to live in peaceful communes like the old council worlds. Others formed competitive confederations that constantly challenged each other to improve. Still others remained completely independent, trading and cooperating when it benefited them, but accepting no outside authority. The Commonwealth continued to grow, not through conquest, but through choice. Species that valued independence and self-determination gravitated toward the human model of government, but other species created their own models, based on their own values and cultures. Admiral Sun-ho Lee, now commander of the Galaxy Defense Force, looked out from his office window at a sight that would have been impossible under the old council. Ships from dozens of different worlds moved through Earth's orbital space, each one flying its own flag alongside the human banner. Cavern traders sold their services to harmony singer artists. Gentle shepherds learned military tactics from human soldiers. Crystal beings like Velthar worked as diplomats between species that had never spoken to each other before. It's messy, Admiral Lee said to his aide, Lieutenant Colonel Sujin Yu. There are arguments, disagreements, even some small conflicts between worlds. But it's alive, Sujin replied. The old galaxy was peaceful, but it was also dead. Nothing changed, nothing grew, nothing evolved. And now? Now every day brings something new. The Void Hunter threat had not disappeared entirely. Scout ships still probed the galaxy's edges, testing the defenses. But the response was no longer left to a single, centralized fleet. Independent defense forces from hundreds of worlds shared information, tactics, and resources. When threats appeared, help came from unexpected directions. The galaxy had learned humanity's most important lesson, that freedom and responsibility went together.